What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. Sorry for the late start. We had a little technical difficulty, microphones, broadcasting live from my restaurant, Della in Brooklyn, Windsor Terrace. Whoop, whoop. The station is closed this week and next week, so we're doing some pop-ups because they're fun, they're challenging. You find out all the things that work and that don't work. The audio being one of those things today. But it's always a gas kitten. With that, I would like to introduce my guest today, Miss Sarina Rao. Sarina Rao.
Hello.
Allora.
Hello.
Say hi to Alessandra. She said hi to
how
you.
are you?
I don't know if she's listening or not, but that was just really great when she was like, I said, oh, Sarina's watching.
She
said,
awesome.
hello, Sarina.
I heard that. It was awesome.
So Sarina's here, in part, well, we're good friends. I like you. That's one of the reasons why you're here.
Nice.
But I think there's a lot of similarities between Alessandra and Sarina. They both are involved in careers surrounding music and spirituality. Very interesting subset and genre of music, of which...
Although I can't dance or play an instrument. So.
You could probably dance. I've seen your footwork.
I'm not so sure about that.
She's modest. So Sarina and I, we basically got to know each other through jiu-jitsu.
That's correct.
Sarina and I are both purple belts, both training partners. Don't let her size fool you. She's deadly. So I've seen her move. She got the moves like Jagger, for sure. So we got to know each other over the last 4 or so years.
3 years, yeah.
3 years.
It's been 3 years for me.
And then our kids went to the same school. We also live in the same community, so we got to know each other that way. And I enjoy training with you. I don't know. By your facial expression, sometimes I'm not sure you.
That's because just sometimes I'm just not sure what's going on.
What just happened?
It's not a reflection on you. It's on me.
Yeah. We've created a relationship, a friendship, and often the relationships you create in a bond like jiu-jitsu,
Yes.
they run pretty deep. So we become good buddies. I let her choke me out from time to time. I try to be generous sometimes. But, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Sarina, to start while I fix this stuff.
Outside of all that, the jiu-jitsu that defines me, I moved to Windsor Terrace 7 years ago. I just counted. I had just made a huge career change. I left my work in the garment center, which I had worked in fashion as a designer for many years, and I had sort of started to hate it, and I just took a leap of faith and I left. And
how long had you done that for?
I had done that for 24 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It's what I came to this country to do. It's what I thought I was going to do forever. I had worked for a long time, and it took a long time to even understand that I was sort of starting to hate it and I didn't want to do it anymore.
The garment industry.
Yeah, to be in at the time I thought to be in fashion altogether. I think now I would say to you, I just didn't want to work in the garment industry anymore.
Right. Because you still do things pertaining to fashion.
Yeah, but I resisted it for a long time. I mean, that's sort of part of the, I don't think I'd be able to do the painting that I do had I not taken that other job in my regular job where I work for the musician. And I think, there's a lot of stuff that happens when you worked for a long time. I had been making a lot of money, and I honestly, after so many years, didn't feel like I had any other skill set, that I didn't know how to do anything else. And maybe you do have to sort of really hit rock bottom and really just be unhappy before you sort of, or at least for me, I had this sort of heart opening, or maybe somebody would call it like a spiritual awakening or something like that, where I was just like, there's got to be something else. I can't live like this anymore. Mm-hmm. And so,
And did you also own an organic food
at the time
market?
when
Was
I was
that
married.
before
That
or
was
after?
before. Well, it was sort of during, because it was at the time my husband's thing. It was earlier on in our marriage. So in the 24 years of my garment center career, it was in the first portion of that.
So
yes, it
tell
was
us
a
about
brick and mortar.
Yeah, go ahead.
We opened it with a partner and his wife, and it was sunk all of our money into it. It was a tough breakup when we had to let go of it.
Where was it at?
It was in the East Village on 3rd Avenue and 9th Street.
And what years was this?
Many years ago, 20 years ago.
I didn't ask you how old you were.
30 years ago. 30
years ago
Yeah,
in the
about
East
30 years
Village, an organic market.
Yeah, it was a new idea.
Sure,
it was
sure.
novel.
That was when it was first starting to take over in the U.S.
Yeah.
And how many years did you have it for?
I think it was 4 years.
And so you had that while you were also working in the garment district.
Yeah, it was really my husband at the time. It was really his thing. I mean, I didn't do that much of the work, but it was definitely part of our lives, and it was a lot.
It's funny, that's like on the forum, like you might be an entrepreneur if you have a job and you also open a business. You just might be. You
might just be really stressed out.
Or well, that comes with it. A little crazy.
Yeah,
too.
It was hard. It was hard.
Nice, and you were young. You were just a baby.
Yes.
And then, so you were born in India?
No, I was born in Australia.
You were born in Australia.
I was born in Australia.
And did you live in London too?
No,
did I hear you say that?
No, my father worked for the airlines when we were growing up,
okay.
So we traveled a lot. I was born in Australia. I lived in India. I lived in Canada.
I never knew that about you. I love it on the show because you find out things about
things.
Like.
I feel a little bit like I'm sort of faking it because I was born in Australia. I lived there for 7 months of my life. It just sounds good to say, so I tell people. That,
you gotta practice the accent.
I just have no. I'm not really connected. I just really did live there.
I've seen this jiu-jitsu meme, and it's like this guy, and he's all banged up. His face is all mashed up from training, and he's like in his office talking to one of his coworkers. Uh-huh. And he's talking about this guy that he trains with and how they're best friends and they have this great relationship. And he's like, "What's the guy's name?" He's like, "I don't know." No. Like you just
yes.
It creates. I was saying earlier, it creates these relationships. And
yeah,
you didn't.
Jiu-jitsu is amazing.
So you're Australian. So you're Aborigine. Is that?
Yes.
Are you good with the boomerang?
I just finished saying that I left when I was 7 months old.
I thought they taught him early.
Nope.
Then.
Not that early.
Cool. So fashion. Food, martial arts. Mm-hmm. How the fuck did you end up working in the music industry? So,
I think, sometimes when you take a leap of faith, you don't exactly know. That's the point of it. You don't know where you're going to land. And I packed up my kids and I moved here to Windsor Terrace and I was looking for work because I still didn't know that I could do anything else. I still was thinking maybe there's a different type of job I can get. Maybe there's something that I can I still look good on a resume for this particular person. And I went on a bunch of interviews, and every time I had to fight this like sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach that I just didn't want to do this. But, I'll say, when you try and make a change in the middle of your life, I was in my mid-40s. I had 2 children. Those
Again, I didn't ask you how old you were.
No, okay. Well, I'm telling you, because it's relevant. It's not easy to make a change in the middle of your life. And I feel like, sometimes I feel upset when I hear, you don't make any excuses and just go for it. If you want to do something, you got to... Those considerations are real. I had 2 children. There was no couch surfing happening for me. Right. I had to land someplace where everyone could be okay. And so I kept looking for that work that I thought was going to get me that big salary and was somehow going to make it just a little bit better. And in the meantime, my sister, Nina, that lives in the neighborhood, she was the manager for this musician. Now, I think it's relevant that she's also a musician, but they sing devotional music. So the people
but not like Billy Graham devotional music.
Well, I mean, it's from the Hindu tradition in India. There's
a thing called kirtan.
That. Yeah, kirtan.
It's not holy rollers.
Yeah, call and response. And it's a beautiful community to be in and surrounded by people who are on a spiritual path, or just basically everyone looking for sort of a better way to live, to be happy, to be content. And it was wonderful to be part of that, and to have their voices around me all the time was also very beautiful.
Going through that transition.
Volunteered to help them.
Yeah.
I volunteered because I, again, didn't believe I had any skill set to actually legitimately work there, nor were they hiring at the time. And I'd say it was one of the best things I ever did. I gave myself to it. I didn't have a lot of worry about whether I was going to be worthy or any of that kind of, all that mental stuff that happens sometimes. And I just did what they needed me to do. And it was a great experience. And as I sort of eased into it, one thing led to another. And then they asked me if I wanted to have a job. And I was overjoyed. I let go of the idea of, making a big salary and all of that stuff, because I could just feel that there was actually happiness on this other end over here,
and this was,
I hadn't felt for
this
a long
was like
time.
right after like the economic meltdown too, right?
All around me, every single person I knew was getting laid off except for me. That's what I wanted. I kept thinking, well, I was glad that it wasn't me, but at the same time I was like, well, and then finally I did get this great job. It was actually one of the best jobs I had in the garment center, and it was a new division of an older company, and they closed the entire division down. And that is what sort of was the catalyst for me to say, okay, this is my out, and I'm going to take it. And so I didn't really know where any of it would go. I counted the other day, it's 6 years now that I've been working with them. I still sometimes say, 3 years ago, and time has just gone by, and it's been amazing. I had to learn everything. I didn't know anything about being in the music business. I work on the back end, so I do things like registering tracks and things like that, and putting albums together. I'm not a musician. I sing in the shower. Nobody's interested in hearing me otherwise, and so it was great, to be able to learn something at this stage in my life, and I get to work from home. All of those things were a really good. It made taking the pay cut less and less of a big deal.
Right.
It was,
I hear that as a consistent theme from a lot of business leaders these days. Not all of them, clearly, because there's some of them that are like, you got to get that money.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, in particular the ones that I gravitate towards, discuss, think of being happy.
A balance.
Yeah, don't worry about the extra zero in your bank account, because you can't take it with you when you go. Right. And like when you're old and you're sitting back and you're looking at your life, are you going to care about that zero or about how you lived? Yeah. So I usually start every show with a quote of the day.
Okay.
And then we dance.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
You dance.
I just want to see you dance. And because things just kind of started a little rocky because of the tech aspects, but I also wanted to like kind of slide this in at a certain point, because I usually quote like Tony Robbins or Simon Sinek or somebody like that, but today I'm quoting you.
What do you mean?
So we did a focus group, which was also kind of inspired by you.
Oh, okay.
In this very room where we're sitting, different orientation, but same room. Yes. Where we just brought together a number of people from different backgrounds. So real estate agent, Sarina, a coffee broker, and a gentleman that owns an online tutoring company, and just chewed the fat about outreach, representation, a little social media, a little social branding, but just like who are you, what are you, business identification, competition, things like that. And I find that anytime we have one of these little meetings or there's a broadcast, a show, there's always a little gem. There's like a 5-second gem, and Sarina offered it that night. And it has to do with what you said, directly pertaining to what you said about how you got involved with your current situation. And I don't know if you remember saying this, but you said you can only be of service if you were delivering something of value. Otherwise, you're not serving anybody. And there's a bunch of different ways to cut up value. Like, what is value? But
yes, because it's relative to who
right.
you're delivering it to. Sure.
But it directly connects to what you said about the pay cut and happiness, where you were in a situation where you were just like, I like these people, this is good, this is the message I need to hear, how can I help?
Yep.
You know, and so that was value to them. They weren't looking for a position. You just offered something with no real expectations.
Right, no agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
That
and
was
then a lot of times that can turn into some really good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a religious person. I don't follow.
I don't know that I am either.
Right,
I think there's a little distinction between being spiritual and
Right.
and following a religion.
Well, then how do you feel about karma?
I mean, I don't get into all of that
Okay,
kind of
cool.
stuff.
I don't either, but there is definitely energy.
I think so, and
Yeah.
I do think that there is a path that we're sort of set on, and things happen to us, and I guess that's your karma, and you have to figure out how in this life you want to navigate those things. And I think that a spiritual practice or a movement practice or a jiu-jitsu practice, all of these things help us navigate those things.
Well, and even more on just a fundamental level in terms of energy. Meaning, like if you're in a conversation with somebody and you start it with an angry tone, you probably expect to receive an angry tone back.
Yeah.
But if you started in a gentle tone, it wouldn't be outlandish for you to expect a gentle tone back. You might not always get it, but the same with that energy and that spirit of giving and just expectationless service. Oftentimes it will reciprocate, and that can be really great. And I've benefited from the same in a number of ways in the last few years.
Giving and receiving.
And just not having an agenda and just like laying into things that I really think are valuable and just wanting them to succeed. And then they bring, whether it's financial, spiritual, physical, a combination of the three, a lot of really great benefits have come from that. And just like kind of riding that wave and thinking that way more, especially in terms of business, it's hard to let go of the dollar.
Sure.
You can't completely, or you're going to be broke and out in the
street. There's also a little bit of sort of stigma attached to it. It's like, well, what are you doing this for if you're not doing it for this? Or don't you want to grow your business? I used to hear that a lot. And it was hard because my default is also working from big companies where that was the goal. Everything was
you
about
dealt with it a lot.
maximizing.
From owning a family-owned business and seeing what happens there and the big company side.
For me to undo all of that, was sort of like, it was literally like a default where I was like, wait, I don't have to do that anymore. But in order to just sort of follow your heart, it takes a lot of faith. You really have to let yourself be guided. It's not.
Well, I think you might think you might have practiced and like done whatever you've done for a long time and feel like I know what's going to happen, and you still don't know.
No.
It's always a leap of faith. It's just a matter of what you've convinced yourself what the outcome is, the potential outcome is going to be like. You have no idea, and I think the more you embrace that, the smoother things can go too, and be very jiu-jitsu like response, just like feel where the pressure's coming from instead of thinking I'm going to smash that pressure and push back.
The softer you become. I mean, that's. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about making making a transformation in your life, and I was like, you sort of soften against the stuff that's coming at you, so that you can find your way around it.
And when you don't have a choice, like when it's bigger than you, it's overwhelming.
It's
kind of like when you and I train, and I'm just like smashing your face into the mat.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how it is.
So I'm curious, and I have been since you said that night, because I have it on video when you said that, and I was like, "Whoa, stop the bus! I got to write this down." Like that was great. Where did that come from? Where it's a pretty profound statement.
Yes,
and it was like all these business people around, and like nobody else was like saying anything like that. And
I've never said it before, but I think it's just I just relate how I really feel. I do address everything that I do for the most part from the point of being of service, of being useful. I would like to have a positive, just whatever. I don't want to say impact or whatever. Just anybody to have a positive experience, whatever I'm experiencing. And so I think what I meant is that you kind of can't. There's nothing to fake. You have to, the thing that's of value is real, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the only way that it's. I think that's kind of where I was coming from. So I said, can you repeat what I said to me?
I can.
You're only being of service if you're delivering something of value, correct?
Otherwise, you're not serving anybody.
Yeah, because. But I said it because for me, I don't remember the context. I don't remember what we were talking about before. But I think it was about actually how do you put your stuff out there. And I think that what I was trying to get at is being sincere and being real about what it is that you're putting out there. Look, I do the painting thing, for instance.
Right.
That as much as I love my job, and it's a full-time job, I did miss. I missed touching pencils and those kind of things, and so, but I had rejected everything about being in fashion, about advertising, about all of that kind of stuff. So then when I started to talk about, well, I have these, if you want to buy them, it became, I had to sort of work on it. I had to like reset myself and figure out how was I going to do it. And for me, the best way was to be sincere, I think. And that's what I was thinking I was saying.
So
just really be...
Just to recap, you worked for a big company, you owned your own business, I
did everything backwards.
On the side, you make your own clothes and just sell them like
so what happened,
hustle. You might be an entrepreneur if
yes. I mean, look, the long version.
You're so funny because you're like, I'm not an
was,
entrepreneur.
Oh, I know. And you'll talk to Professor Laurel and I talk about it all the time. Yeah. But I wanted to follow anything that I felt was going to give me joy, and it did. I started to paint just for myself. I had a ton of black clothes. That's all I ever wore, and I had this one bottle of paint that takes color out of black, and so I started to do it, and people were like, "Oh, can I have one?" And I gave them away. And then I ran out of that stuff, and then I realized it costs money I did not know these things, but if in a perfect world, I'd be just giving this stuff away, and it wouldn't, take the time that it does to make it. And so I wanted to be involved in a charitable project, and so I sort of tied those two things together. So I give money from everything I paint to an organization, and I think that's where I was coming from when I said it. But I think it was because I think the coffee guy had said something about posting and
there was something brewing in the air for sure. But again, just thinking of like even deeper, I didn't know if it was like you had read something that pertained to that.
I think I just really I think there's a lot of, I think it can be easy, especially when you're talking about social media, to start feeling like you have to make up stuff, because everything has to look great all the time,
right.
and
or not.
Yes, or it doesn't have to look great, and nor do you have to share every bad thing that happens or every good thing that happens. But I think I wanted to say that it has to, for you to have happiness from what you're doing, you can fake it as much as you want. It has to be real. Otherwise, you're not going to be happy, right? And so that's what I was trying to get at.
Well, and for me, I've spent the majority of my life and most of my career in service.
Yes.
Whether it was sales or restaurants. And that never occurred to me. It was never really discussed, which is funny because that's
what you do.
That's the job. That's the job. Mm-hmm. It was always so much about the sale.
Yeah.
Get the sale. Add to the sale. Make the sale bigger next time. And in a way, I started to do that thing, like added value without knowing it, or knowing what it was called. I was just being myself and having fun. And fortunately for me, I worked in fields that I was passionate about, so it was easy for that to come through. I was never faking it. I always was behind what I was doing. If not, I had to leave, like just inside. I was like, it's too creepy to do that. But it's just interesting that that concept totally invaded this service industry for so long. And Professor Laurel was the first one to put that bug in my ear too. Like, what's the added value? Like for Della, what's the added value? And I was just like, shit, I don't know. Like, we make good food. She's like, no, but you're a restaurant. Like, you have to make good food. you know.
Yes.
So,
Yes, no excuse. You have to make
I was
up for it,
like,
sure.
is it the music? You know, like what is it? And some things have become apparent over time, and it definitely has to do with the level of comfort and the vibe, and not so much about like, oh, I gave that person free dessert, you know, like that's not added value. You know, there's so many deeper levels to it, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, but it's completely foreign to me after being in the service industry for so long, like 25 years. It's like,
well, I mean, it's funny how these things happen, but I think it's like me being unhappy in the garment center for 24 years and I had just sort of decided that there was no way out.
Right.
Until one day there was a way out. And so I think you can get tunnel vision. It's important to sort of just keep yourself open
and for me it had a lot to do with the way I was taught, you know, starting in this industry like the early 90s, and it was still like the 1980s kind of Wall Street movie, you know, Michael Douglas Wall Street movie mentality. And a lot of the people that I work for, even though they were like nice guys, you know, good people, that was just the pervasive mentality at the time. And what's very liberating now is the people that I listen to that are business leaders are like, fuck that shit, you know, like we got to move on, and it has to do more with added value, really delivering on the service, no expectations, you know, just put what you feel is right out there, and do it repeatedly, and just don't worry about it, you know, because you have no control anyways. Like, stop obsessing over what's the quarter going to be like, or the month, or the year to year, you know.
But if you believe in what you're offering, then you're providing a service.
Right. And if you can do it in a very sincere way. And for me, what I'm finding is that that's the base level. That's as far as I've gotten. Sorry, guys. So far is to do it in a really sincere and thoughtful and honest way. I feel like that's a good foundation, and that there's a lot of other layers that I'm just not aware of yet. But I feel like that's a good place to start. Yeah. And so that was the situation for you once you came on board with this musician who's quite.
His name is Krishna Das. For some people may or may not know him, and
he's quite popular. He plays internationally.
He does. He tours just like a regular rock musician.
Like a rocker.
And so there is
he's
plenty
like the
of
rock and roll haiku guy, right?
Yeah, there's plenty of behind the scenes work for him. It's beautiful to see, you know, if I can help him do his thing and he's helping so many people, then I feel like
that's tons of service, right?
Purposeful, the work that I do behind the scenes, and so I'm really so grateful to be able to do it every day. I wake up thinking about that, and my older sister is the person who's my immediate boss, and she also is a singer, and I still sometimes pinch myself that I get to wake up and do this, and do it from my home, and pick up my kids from school. I mean, my kids are big now, but when I started this, they weren't, you know, and it was. But I still want to say, I feel very lucky, but I still want to say that there was an openness. I was not looking in the same box anymore. And that, I think, was hugely helpful for me to be able to think that this was an option, to offer myself, for them to feel it from me, or to feel like they could trust me to do something or whatever. So it was really... it was great. That's why it was sort of surprising to me when I started to feel like I needed something else, you know, and when I started to paint. But I think that was more that I'm sort of an artist. I'm an artist at heart. Like, that's
it's inspirational as well. Like you I think you were probably feeding off of that energy, and it fueled another part of your brain that brought you joy.
I was with all these people that you know, that sang or played. I mean, there's a bunch of really amazing musicians too that play with them, and they're all doing the thing that speaks to them. And so I think I felt like my expression is the painting. That's just the way I do it. Like I said, I don't sing or play an instrument, and that was awesome for me to be able to pursue that, and to be able to do it at a pace that, again, didn't, you know, on paper, none of it seemed nothing I did made sense. None of it made any. Didn't seem practical.
It's like staring at your P&Ls over and over and trying to figure out like where to make up a penny.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to do that a little bit, but so you said another thing that was really interesting. It was like you just had to look into a different box, and I think that's great advice. Whether you're looking to completely change, so maybe you're out there and you're working for somebody and you're like, this is not what I want to do. This is not feeding my soul. Like for me, I was actually a musician. I was a full-time freelance musician, playing all the time. Had like hundreds of gigs, you know, getting calls left and right, traveling, the whole thing, and I fucking hated it. I was like, this is what I went to school to do. As a kid, I was like, this is all I want to do. If I could get to the point where I'm just traveling and playing music and making a good living off of it, which I had all of that, then I'll be happy. And I got there and I was like, this sucks. Partially because a lot of what I was doing was void of substance, where the real money was at, and the things that really stoked my soul did not make that much money, at least not in that. It's funny because these things are all starting to apply to the way I perceived myself in music going back, you know, especially like 15 years ago when I had just gotten out of school and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going all in on this, and I perceived myself in one particular way. I was just looking in one box. You know, and lately I had to shelf a lot of things for a number of reasons, but lately I started to look in some of those other boxes and I was like, oh,
and also
this totally works.
Yes, and I guess also I used to feel a lot of pressure that you had to, it was all or nothing, right? There couldn't be this balance. You couldn't find and seek out happiness in a couple of different places and have them all in your life and find the balance that way. And so for me, the art became the other part, and it balanced it out. The charity component to that was just my own project. We do a lot of work like that for my boss, but I wanted my own thing, and so it's not a ton of money that I give away every year, but I did come up with a little bit of a formula that worked for me, and so I guess I feel like I'm feeding from a bunch of different places, and then
you have to.
The final. But I think my upbringing wasn't like that.
No,
maybe I'm dating. It was like everything was supposed to happen.
Wait, how old are you?
I went to school for one thing. I came to this country to do this. I came all the way to do this.
Did you go to FIT?
Thing. Yes, I did. I went to FIT. I applied as an international student.
From Australia?
No, I was in India at the time. Oh my God. I was in India at the time.
I'm never going to let this go.
Yes, everything was from Australia. Everything was from Australia.
How does kangaroo taste?
It's amazing. It's horrible.
So, you sidetracked me. God damn it. I totally forgot. I had a really good. You said something that really like. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I got this great advice. This was business advice, and it was. I was already in New York, so it was, you know, just shy of 15 years ago, and it was from a guy that I used to work for, who's just a little bit older than me, but he started young. He probably opened his first business when he was like 23 or something like that. I mean, he really hit it hard. And he's a restaurant guy. He's opened dozens. And I watched him kind of progress from that 1980s business mentality to a much more open thing, which was funny because we've been really close friends since like 1993, I think, you know. And there are periods where I don't talk to him for like 6 months, 8 months, sometimes a year. And then we'll chat, and he, you know, just to watch his evolution has really been great and given me confidence. But one of the things he said to me at one point was, it's better for you to have 20% of 5 things than 100% of one. Now he was talking about business, but I started to apply that to a lot of different things, like my workout routine. I've always been into fitness and wanted to stay fit, and there were times where I was like, I'm just going to do this and get like really great at that. But I found the diversity, you know, has been better, and offered me a wider range of what I'm really looking for, you know, the benefit. Even though like for the last 4.5 years, jiu-jitsu and martial arts has been the core of what I've done. Like you find that formula is not exact. With something.
Yes,
it's not always exact, but just to be pliable that way and think that way. And then I hear other business minds right now saying something similar, where if you have 100%, whatever's working for you really good, you should go big on that. You should double down on that. So if that was 40%, maybe make that 80%, and then you've got all these other things here in a smaller percentage. Whatever the ratios are, that doesn't really matter.
There is only one of you.
But the same could be said for the activities you participate in. And the main reason for that is because that thing that's working for you right now might, and it might adjust and that might decline. And as long as you've got the fire kind of burning already under these other things, they'll supplement each other. And so it can be said too of just like whatever makes you happy. So
I was just going to say, what's giving you joy?
Right.
Or maybe they're all giving you joy, but one of them is actually paying you more.
Right.
And that's legitimate.
Or something that you were just doing that just gave you joy. You had no intentions of making money from, and like all of a sudden you're making money from it, and you're like, wow. And then that could like slowly creep on the thing that for the last 7 years was like your bread and butter. Right. It could adjust. That doesn't mean that has to completely go away and you have to quit. It's not that mentality of like,
or your skill level here is way higher.
Yeah,
and you need to do some more work.
Right. But that mentality of like, I think of like, and my parents didn't even really do it where they stuck with the one career, but that was their generation.
My dad
it was my parents didn't. It was put on them to do that. Like, you need to do this and really pursue that. They both have settled on things that they've done for a while now, but it was never like they got out of college, studied this one thing, did that one thing, and just stayed with that. It definitely meandered, but I think that was definitely the prevailing mentality at the time. Unfortunately for me, they didn't push that on me. They were just like, you gotta do something.
Yeah.
I think they would have preferred if I did better in school, but
well,
I made it. I got there. I think they're happy with the product now.
You're not still living with them. It's
right. Yes. Although
sometimes maybe.
So what are some of, now that we've gone through like your history and some of the crazy things you've done currently, what are some of the things that you're doing for this, and how many people are really employed in the organization that you work for? It's not that many, right?
No,
it's pretty small.
I don't even know how to. I don't really know the answer, but it's under 10.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So this is an internationally touring artist with a good following. How many albums? What are people putting out these days? I can't keep up with the kids anymore.
We still put out CDs. Yeah, he did. I think we're up to 17.
Damn, you're old.
Yeah, 17. Because 17. I think when you tour, this is what I've understood.
You sell
people
them.
buy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, it's all digital.
Right.
Some of the smaller. I've helped out some
nobody's
people
buying your CD off of Amazon, but if you're, that's what I experienced too.
If you're touring at the merch table.
If you have a merch table, they will buy it. Yeah, especially if it's like 10 or less.
It's been interesting learning all of that kind of stuff. It's great. It's so much fun. The work is so much fun. But then there's also the CDs I put out because basically what he does is he's sharing his practice of chanting, right? That's why we do that. But there is a lot of spoken word workshops.
But it's like meditative for the most part. It's like meditative.
He talks about his experience. He doesn't teach meditation particularly, but it's definitely there are
like
co-teachers and stuff. Yeah. So it's a great world to be in.
So 17 releases.
I haven't been involved in all of them, of course.
But and some digital as well.
Yeah.
What are some of the things then that like day to day? What are like
that
some of your tasks? Yeah.
So really, I mean, those are obviously we're not putting out albums every day, but so what I was hired to do was to catalog all of his work. So that it could eventually be released digitally.
Right.
We had recordings and stuff, but they weren't in any concise way. And so as I've what I do with my sister is to create different ways to share some of the teachings. Like we started a podcast series, and we have a video series that we release on YouTube. Those are all free. We also set up a 501c3 because there is a charitable organization attached to what he wants to do, and so it's really nice work.
And what are some of the other platforms you've released digitally on?
Our podcasts are everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and any of these other.
Is it all
smaller-
just subscription, or is there downloadable? Like, have you guys messed with SoundCloud?
On our website, SoundCloud, yeah, they're hosted there.
Right.
That is where we host them, and you can download.
iTunes or
I think you can download those, right, and listen to them offline. I've
just in
never really-
podcast form.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can listen to it on our website and download it too.
And are there any? There's like. When you say catalog, I was just thinking of like the guys that I went to school with that just sit at home and like kick out digital music and put it into catalog for like commercial use. Have you all done anything like that as well? Okay.
No. When I meant catalog, I meant organize. Gotcha. Like actually organizing the work. There was a bunch of stuff that had been kept but not organized.
Gotcha.
We didn't even really know what we had. And eventually, those things can be used for teachings in the future, and we put together an online course at one point. So yeah, it's been really good. I mean, these are things I didn't know how to do, so it's kind of awesome. Yeah, no.
All those years in the garment industry.
Well, I tell you what it taught me. It taught me how to be a project manager, and I think that's a big time management, being able to foresee that things go wrong. Equipment fails even though you just tested it, so you had to back up for a backup.
Just bought this shit.
Yeah, well, so that I think that's what it taught me, and then I was, I had some maturity, so I was able to follow through without needing a lot of supervision and that kind of thing, and I think that's why I feel like at least I've found myself a home.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you also dabble in social media for...
I do, yes, for them. It's sort of felt, it's a nice way to reach people. He has a big Facebook following. He has a big, some of the people are older, although there is an influx of some younger people that want to be, want to access the teachings.
Like 50, 60-year-old
is the Facebook crowd, and we found is older, like my age, and then there's younger crowd. We have a big Instagram following too, and so we divide it up. Yeah, I mean, I don't do the Facebook. I have there's another person that does the Facebook stuff. I do the Instagram, but even that, like, you have to learn the way people think, and there's a little bit of ADD attached to the people who do the scrolling and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean that it's not worth writing something if you have something that you want to say. And I think, again, just it's important to be sincere. I think people can feel that, and it doesn't have to be the most artistic post. I love a beautiful picture and all that, but it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be. If it's fake, it discredits it. No, I remember a long time ago I had to do a voiceover. I had no.
I was going to ask you about that because I remember you doing
I had to do, yes. Every now and then I do these things. Yes, it was actually a throwback picture. That was that day, actually. I did it. I was trying to help out my sister, and I had really no experience. I had done some little translation kind of stuff in dubbing of movies when I was much younger, but I didn't really have this type of experience. And so the lady that was helping me was remote. She was just in my ear. She was talking to me, and she, as I was doing it, she said to me, smile while you're talking. Like, nobody can see me. No, but she said to me, people can hear you smile. Yeah. And I thought that was amazing. It makes a huge difference, and I think what that means is that your intention gets transmitted. And I think that's the same thing for anything that you do. It's the same thing for when I paint and the patterns disappear and people are like, well, I can feel it. And I think it's important. So everything that you do, you serve food that way, you cook food that way, and people can feel your intention. It gets transmitted. It's
no different than when you're recording music. Like when you're in a studio and you're separated in your rooms and
stuff. People can feel your heart in it. Yeah.
I find you can really still capture even remote tracking and tracking at different times. Sometimes I'll throw down a drum track and I'll have my buddy who lives in Long Island overdub it at another date. But we play together so much that we can kind of summon that live feeling that we get when we're in front of a room full of people and it's hot, I absolutely think people can hear if you're just like, I'm in a room, and
they can feel your mood and
have you seen some of the cartoons of it's people on Instagram in particular where they're like holding up their phone and there's like a spotlight on them and like a bag of money, but behind them it's like like bones, bones and skulls.
No.
And it shows them all happy, but then it shows like their soul behind them, like cowering, and the spotlight is just like really small on like what their picture is, and then the rest of it is just like.
I mean, put out there whatever you want to, but just I guess for me, I'm just like, just be true to yourself. Like, just be honest with yourself about, is this where you want to be?
Yeah.
Is this what you want to?
Another one of the things that I've heard in a lot of hot discussion lately is like the social media and its place in our society and our lives and who we think we are. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's just encouraging people to be fake. And then I've heard other people say, no, it's just exposing the fake people. Like, it's pretty easy to see. Like, if that person is doing that, like, they would do it before. It wasn't as public.
Sure.
It
was all there.
But
it's
we
just
always
it comes at you so fast and so much, so easily.
But it also expedites them being exposed as fake. It's just like, yeah, but that's bullshit, and it. Like, that's not your life. Like, I know you. I hear you complain all the time. Like, when I talk to you, that's not how you live. Yeah. But then all your it's just.
But then
pretty obvious.
The other thing is the people hating on it. It says something about them too.
Right.
So I feel like. I get into conversations about social media manners, and people sort of look at me a little bit like, I think you're giving it
like
too much.
What are some examples?
I always say, think of your page or your account or whatever as being at a party. You know some people, you don't know all the people.
Right.
You know that those people know some people that you know. Are you seriously walking in there and just ignoring everyone? Are you not smiling back if somebody smiles at you?
Right.
If somebody says, hey, nice shirt, you're not saying thank you? And
right.
So I guess I always sort of liken it to that, and I'm like, and
That's great.
So yeah, like, that's why there's such a thing as likes and shares and comments, and use those.
Right. So you're referring to somebody, like if somebody leaves you a comment on a photo or something like that, and you're just like, don't respond, nothing.
I think it's. I think if you can't, especially when we're not talking about people that have a gazillion followers, you can't keep up after a while. Right. But I think that if you are interacting, it wouldn't be a bad thing to do it. But it's also okay if you are the kind of person that just posts and you don't look, but then you don't care if anybody sees. There's a lot of different types of personalities.
Like for you and I, especially like your job, you use it for outreach. So This is
where I think it is important.
Yeah.
If you're trying eventually to sell something, or have somebody come someplace, or eat at your restaurant,
just
or
some
buy
kind
a
of
ticket,
interaction,
or buy
they
my
call
pants, or
conversion.
Yeah. I hate all that stuff. It makes me nuts. But I think at that point,
like that
then
word.
There has to be some kind of a give and take. There has to be this sort of respect that you have for the person that you need, basically.
Right.
And so sometimes people are like, you're the problem because I'm putting so much weight in. What's the big deal? It doesn't occur to me to like this, that, and the other. People scroll, and I do think people just do it without thinking.
For some
it's
people,
not this calculated.
It's just entertainment. Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like the platforms can be really useful. I know people say I'm sick of my feed. I'm like, well, just make it so that you don't have to be sick of it. If you care about environmental issues, then follow people that do good work. There's a lot of people doing really great work and putting out really good content. You don't have to hate your feed, or you can just get off the platform. That's also okay.
Just switch it up. But like you said, two things that you said that would be good advice for that is look in a different box. Like, stop posting the same shit that you've been posting. Right. Stop trying to imitate the other people around you. Right. Like, just think outside of the box. And then the other thing you said was it doesn't have to be the best picture. If the intent is right behind it,
I think people
if there's good intention behind it, and it's so don't worry so much about the creative, because beauty is very.
Yeah.
Is it subjective or objective? Beauty is objective?
Subjective.
Yeah, subjective.
It's different for everybody.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, like, you might think, like, oh, I can't post this because people are going to think that's ugly. But the person that you need to make a connection with might be like, oh, that's so awesome. I'm reaching out to you because I love that. So stop hyper-focusing on what you think quality is so much in terms of, like, for everybody else. Like, you have to have your own, you have to have, a set of standards, but don't make that the stamp all for
don't let
everybody.
it hold you back if you've got something to say. You know,
and if you are kind of frustrated with the things that are going, one of the things that I did recently was just get some new lenses for the iPhone. And I wasn't frustrated. I'm just always looking for like the next new thing, and I was just like love flipping things on its side a little bit. So I got some lenses, and I'm like, oh, this is great, you know. And the response has been good. I didn't need it, but those are just some suggestions.
I think because I guess I feel always a little if you take any courses or anything about people talking about gaining followers and stuff like that on your platforms, they'll tell you post and everything has to be aesthetically really beautiful. And yes, it does. If your goal is to just gain followers, and of course if something is aesthetically pleasing, you'll get somebody to stop more than if it's not. But just for the regular person, or just maybe sort of small time like the way I am and the way I want to sell my stuff, I think it's really just most important that what you're putting out there is from your heart. And
relative. One person I listen to talks about putting different stuff out for different markets. Like one post might go out and that's only going to appeal to like 20% right here. The other 80% he's not worried about right then. Like you might not like it, you might scroll over, it doesn't matter because I got another one for you a little later, you know, later in the day, later in the week or whatever. But just like that, the rule we were talking about earlier. What is the thing, the 80-20, what is that law called again? It comes up, we talk about it in jiu-jitsu a lot, where like 80% of the injuries happen at the top 20% of intensity.
Intensity. I think.
But there's a. I wrote it down. Sorry, Professor Carroll.
Yes, sorry, Professor Carroll. We should know that. Remember, 80% of the injuries happen at the top 20%.
But it applies to just so many things. And it was mentioned earlier, like 80%. You know, if you've got like if you're looking for 100% output, it's not 100% of one thing, but like 80 and then 20 and others, and then it might fluctuate. It might move around. The same could apply to your social media marketing approach, where this particular style of creative may get you a lot of feedback, but you should always be playing with other little things because you have no idea what else is out there. And the feedback and the market, you know, the people that are giving you the most love right now, that could change really quickly.
And also maybe don't get so hooked on the number of likes and stuff like that. Like, you know, sometimes
I heard Instagram was getting rid of likes. I would love to see that happen. That would be so
great. I'm confused about why. I'd like to understand that a little better, but I think
I've heard is because things started to bottleneck into just one type of post, and it became less creative, and there was a decline in usership, and then you got, you know, things like TikTok and LinkedIn, even Twitter, I think, starting to grow, and they're like, whoa. Like, so they're just trying to shift things up to bring users back. But I've heard that people with a lot of followers, that's declined. Like for me, like I have a few hundred, but nothing's changed. But for the people that are really playing the game at the highest level, there've been like some pretty big shifts. And I heard that they were concerned that the creative just really got bland, and that's why people were more concerned about likes. Like, I don't care if you like it, if you see it, and somehow it brings attention to something that I feel like is good, that should be on the planet and should be shared.
Yeah, if you reach even just a few people, it's still
you don't have to like
it,
you don't have to comment, but if it gets in front of you and it brings you awareness, and you're like, that, I think that's good for life, and that would be good for me, then I think that's the most important thing. The gentleman I was speaking to earlier, about earlier, he, for his restaurants, he put a lot into social media marketing going back like maybe not less than 5 years ago, because this place was open already when we talked about it. And there was a point where he was like, you got to just go all in on social media and like run Facebook ads and and he was like, it doesn't matter what you put up, just put content out there. And I was like, okay, you know, I tried it, and I was like, it was creepy. And then I talked to him about a year ago, and he was like, so we found that if you put it all into social media, it's not so great. Like he was saying something to the effect that people almost feel like they're part of your business just by liking your stuff on social media. They're like, oh yeah, no.
Or they want to feel like they're part of it.
Right, but it doesn't turn into any kind of action necessarily. And he deals with a bunch of think takes.
But he said don't worry about the content?
Don't, like what I was saying, don't be so concerned about getting that perfect shot of food. He was like, sometimes we just put a picture of an animal and we get like 10,000 likes, you know, just like it's just a person that just likes to feel out, what's happening and see what responses are like. But at a certain point, he was like, okay, there is a desensitizing point where if you go too hard into social media, you can desensitize people, where it becomes just a digital thing, which is like for what I do and for what you do as well. I mean, you could purely have digital relationships for the music brand.
People
like
want
people
his teachings, and they can't always come to a live event. So
but you
can
probably
share with them that way.
have a lot more people patronizing online than coming to live events, right?
Just because it's yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's overlap.
But you can't get dinner digitally. You can't eat.
Right. Exactly.
Pictures of food.
Right.
And you can't watch a jiu-jitsu video.
Right.
And get in better shape.
Sure.
So I always think of it more like a dating app, where you start the conversation digitally, but it's to be intimate. Like you don't get on a dating app, right? To just have a digital relationship. Right?
Sure, it needs to.
It's like we're going to go out, and then it might. Yeah. So I always think of it that way, where it's just the beginning of a conversation that hopefully will become intimate. So whether you like it or not, whether you comment, if you see it, and I get feedback that says like people saw it and the response is not bad, and it turns into something that would be intimate later, that for me is the goal. That's like the end prize, is just to create the intimate relationship. I believe in the things that I'm doing. It sounds like you do too. Like not just for yourself,
right?
Like this is good, this is good stuff. So that's a good tool, good utilization, a good approach. Is like stop thinking so much about getting a bunch of likes and having like gazillion followers. Just, are you representing? Are you being sincere? Are you being honest? Is it bringing you the kind of attention that you want?
Yeah, it is nice to receive positive feedback. It is nice to have a tangible way to understand whether you got the positive feedback.
I mean, you need some sort of analytics.
But the analytics are only available to people with business accounts, and that's why I'm a fan of what I call the manners, and I think we are putting things out for a particular reason. Yeah,
we're going to do a book called The Manners.
Where we are putting, my Instagram account is sort of like a diary for myself. So sometimes I put stuff up just to earmark certain times in my life and things like that. But I just think everything we do should always be mindful in whichever way it can be, and then whatever that means for you or me or whatever the outcome is, it's okay as long as it's mindful. It feels like everybody's going to do something differently, so I think that's okay. But if you want to hate on social media, no problem. If you want to love it, that's also okay. You want to take a bunch of selfies, it's okay.
You want to fight, that's okay too. Yeah. We'll take you down.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that was great. I think we should end with that, because I was going to say you have the final quote, and you just banged it out again without me even prompting you. So
I did have one that I came across this morning.
Go for it. Yeah, you may share.
So it's a quote that I loved for a long time, and I just came across it, and it goes like this. It's by Ram Dass, and he says, if you have certain desires about the way things ought to be, you can't see how it is.
Right.
Did you like that one?
I did. Yeah. Good. No, you gotta. Someone said to me once, very similar. She was a massage therapist. She studied at the Edgar Cayce Center in Virginia Beach. Are you familiar with Edgar Cayce?
I used to know a bunch of body workers for a minute. So
when I lived there, she was married to the West Indian lead singer of the reggae band that I was in at the time. I was a child. I was like 17, 18, and they had kids my age. But she said, because I was, at the time, it's very tumultuous for me, and things were just flipping over so fast. I was going from being a teenager to like being a man to being out on my own, and I had big expectations. And she said, just try to grasp this, young buck. She was like, life often will not turn out the way you thought it did, but often the way you expected it. So stop being so hyper-focused. And when you have like, that's like almost Buddhist, right? Like when you have desires, when you have these worldly these worldly things that you
can't really appreciate.
Yeah.
Or if you have some idea of something that needs to be a particular way and it's not that way, you lose sight of what you actually
you lose
have.
sight of the abundance that's there. It might not be what you wanted, but it'll be pretty much what you needed, unless you, God forbid, you're in like civil war torn country or you know, like real treachery.
Sure.
But outside of that, if you can loosen the reins a little bit, you realize there is a certain abundance out there that will give you what you need, and enough to get you, I'd say, to the next level and probably beyond. But it takes really like letting go of your preconceived notions and desires. And that was awesome. High five. That was great. Awesome.
Much.
All right, everybody.
Thank you so much.
We're going to head out. Sorry we went a few minutes over. We started a little late. Next week, we're going to do the same thing. Not with Sarina, somebody else. She'll be back. Another special holiday broadcast. Well, this will be post New Year's. The station will still be closed. We're going to do it right here, although in a different orientation. Not the same orientation every time, because I just like to mix it up a little bit. But hopefully you got some value out of this. I did. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Sarina.
Happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah. Enjoy your New Year's. Be safe. Be happy. Try to recognize the abundance that's around you, especially this time of year where you get stuck with family and people that maybe there's some agitation with. Let the reins go a little bit and just to try to enjoy what's there. All right, everybody. Have a really awesome weekend. We're going to see you next week. Peace.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Hey, all you crazy listeners. Looking to boost your business? Why not advertise on Talking Alternative with very reasonable rates? Interested? Simply email at info@talkingalternative.com.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.